Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. We'll go ahead and have the clerk call the roll.
Corliss,
Here.
Halliburton,
Here.
Morales,
Here.
Nash,
Here.
Stead, Willetts.
Here.
5 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. So, Sean is not feeling well. He's under the weather. That's why we started late today. We're going to start with an Arts and History Annual Report from Jennifer Stevens. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and members of council. Thank you for having me. I'm Jennifer Stevens. I'm with the Department of Arts and History. I have been at the helm of the department for 2 years, and this is the first annual report you're getting from us. So consider it 2 years of annual report altogether. I wanted to start with telling you what some of the goals were when I first got to the department. So a couple of things were right up front for me, aligning the department's work in public programming with the city's vision, particularly the vision of creating a city for everyone. We also wanted to create predictable services and programming. A lot of what the department has done in the past has been absolutely phenomenal, but it was a lot of one and done. And we've been really trying to sort of create an identity for the department that could be predictable for the public and really build the work that we're doing. We also wanted to update the department's vision, mission, and values to reflect the city's diverse populations, enhance the residents' connection to place, and encourage civic engagement. The department's changed a lot in the last, since its founding 16 years ago. We wanted to make sure that our mission reflected that. We wanted to build and strengthen the relationships with city departments and community partners, and we wanted to focus especially on the department's long-term sustainability. So I want to ask you today to focus on a few through lines that you're going to see throughout the presentation. We've focused on Boise resident opportunities, and that stretches from involvement in city work, volunteer opportunities, service opportunities, as well as attendance at cultural events as a way to sort of engage them in the culture of the city and the place that we live. I want you to focus on the through line of partnerships that we've built over the last 2 years. A real emphasis on accessibility with a lot of the work that we're doing, including public programming and then accessibility of the public art collection, and then resident engagement. Those have been our real focuses. So as we think about the department identity and the collaboration, I think it's good to pay attention to the mission that we created. And we worked together with a retreat and many staff meetings over the course of about 6 months. And we came up with a mission that's on the screen now to cultivate a distinct sense of place, which reflects Boise's rich past, diverse communities, and unique natural setting. We also conducted over the last 2 years, the department's first reorganization. Again, the number of staff that we have today is so different from 16 years ago that we really needed to look at how to align our folks across the board. And I wanted to provide some professional development and leadership growth opportunities for some of our early career folks. We've also been very focused on building relationships with our peers throughout the city, especially those whose work was clearly aligned with ours in library and parks, but also not just them, also public works and airport, which might seem like unaligned and not exactly the same type of work, but I'll get into those partnerships as I go through the presentation. What those have done those particular 2 last partnerships have done is really allowed us to grow the collection and create full-time positions that are focused specifically on creating art in those 2 places. So it's great, art and cultural programming. And then we also wanted to, as I mentioned in the first slide, create repeatable, predictable programming for our residents. So what we've done is we've decided, we've sort of focused on what we're now calling core programming. And what that means is the same naming programs that we repeat over and over. The content changes, but the public can begin to come to recognize what it is that we offer. City Steps is a good example of that. That was a tour program that we rolled out this summer. We're also holding professional development workshops that are under the name of Level Up. That can be public art workshops, it can be grant writing workshops, but they're all under that name of Level Up. We, of course, have regular programs that we've had before that aren't new, that we are continuing to do, that are predictable and regular. Artist in Residence, the Writer in Residence, which is a collaboration between the library and the Log Cabin Literary Center, and then Cultural Ambassador and our annual grant program. So those are things that are predictable, that we can become known for, and our brand can get built that way. We also leave opportunities for initiative-based and opportunistic programs. And what I mean by that, with initiative-based, for instance, we may have a particular event in the city or a commemoration that we really want to do some programming around. The Depot 100 that's coming up is a great example of that. So we're not just doing that core programming, we're also focused on making sure we have opportunities and flexibility in our schedules to do that initiative-based and opportunistic programming. If a partner comes to us and wants to do something, we want to make sure we have time and availability for that. And then finally, importantly, we're also putting that stuff on schedules. So again, so that our residents can know that what we offer. And we took a cue from our friends in Parks and Library and started putting out a cultural program guide. So you've probably seen those throughout City Hall as well as throughout the city as an opportunity for residents who may not use their phones or follow us on social media to have a paper copy of something that they can look at and see what we have to offer. Not surprisingly, you guys have heard over the years that we had a massive turnover in our department right before I arrived to be the director. So you can see based on this chart that 56% of our staff has been here at the city less than 2 years, and another 25% has been here less than 5 years. So what that's meant is building a team, getting new people who are excited about the work that we're doing, and building capacity. We have done a great job of that. We have hired some young, fantastic professionals who are super excited about the work, passionate, and educated in the areas that we actually serve in. One of the opportunities of having all those vacancies is the opportunity to look for alignment across those positions. So for instance, we have many public art people. We have now a public art program manager who manages all the public art program specialists as well as the care and conservation team. So again, that offered an opportunity for management for a young career professional, but also brought those folks together so that they can be working under a person, a manager with a single vision and have alignment among their work. So speaking of the Public Art Division, I thought I'd start today by telling a little bit about the team. So there's the one program manager, 3 public art specialists, and 2 members of the care and conservation team. The public art collection is more than just, we tend to be known especially for the site-based installations that we have throughout the city, one of which is on the screen here. This is E Pluribus Unum, a mural by Addie Boswell in the 8th Street Tunnel. The Gentle Breeze Pink Tree is another one. But we also have a series of portable works that rotate throughout our facilities. In fact, there's some here in City Council chambers, as well as throughout the city facilities across the city. And then in addition to those, we also have the James Castle collection and something called the Visual Chronicle, which chronicles Boise. In fact, a couple of those are also behind you. In addition to the team and those parts of the collection, we also have partnered over the last couple of years with Public Works and Airport, and then the Care and Conservation team. So what you see in front of you is another one of our site-based installations that we installed over the last couple of years with CCDC. This is on the old Boise blocks of Grove Street. And with Percent for Art financing, we aim each year in our project planning to balance large and bigger budget projects that are like the Pink Tree, for instance, with smaller budget projects like the medallions you see on the screen in front of you and the traffic boxes. That mix of projects provides a wide range of opportunities for the creative sector, for established artists as well as for emerging artists. Additionally, over the past several years, partnerships with CCDC have resulted in additional funding that allows us to do art like this that's in those urban renewal districts and have really increased the capacity. And as a result of this incredible capacity building, Boise, who was already pretty well known for its public art program and the longevity of it, is becoming even more well known throughout the region as well as through the country. This is an example of one of the traffic boxes that went in just over this last year. And I want to show you what that building capacity has done in the course of the last couple of years. So you can see in 2023, we were still getting our feet under us. That's represented by that green bar there in these 3 areas. But you can see in 2024 and then upcoming this year, we have a lot more installations coming. And so really what we're doing again is building that connection to place, connecting our residents to the place that is Boise and the values that the art represents. So we're really excited about the capacity that we've built. In addition to the site-based installations, we have grown our portable works over this past couple of years. This is, again, the collection that rotates throughout our city facilities, and we regularly add to this through our Percent for Art funding. This is photographer Gracio Baraka, who photographed the Idaho Black Community Alliance Gala in 2023, which was a representation of the Middle Passage of the African American community, and then the lives that they've created in America since that time. These photos were then exhibited at the Irma Heyman House in an exhibition called Afro Blue. His photos are now in our permanent collection and will be rotated throughout Boise's facilities over the foreseeable future. We also have hosted, of course, several artist residents at the James Castle House over the last couple of years, 5 each year. And each of those artists donates one of their artworks at the end of their residency. So those also are added to the Portable Works collection. Our partnership with Public Works and the Boise Public Airport has flourished through their funding of full-time employees focused entirely on art that, for Public Works, uses arts to communicate climate and environmental goals, and for the airport to conduct placemaking and provide visual cues for the city's values and the history of the people who pass through that facility. What you see on the screen is Reclaimed Majesty by Serena Allen Zakowski. This is an art installation that grew out of a partnership with CCDC, Public Works, Boise State School of the Arts, and this student who was in a sculpture class at the university where our team went in, taught those students throughout the entire semester how to create public art, how to apply to calls for public art, and then created this sculpture out of entirely recycled materials referencing Boise wildlife. And this is one of the rotating pieces. This is an art port on the linen blocks and will be rotated out every 2 years with new student work. So with the 2 enterprise-funded departments footing the bill for the work, the Arts and History Department team is in a much better position to facilitate this enterprise-funded work and implement the 2 master plans that Council passed a few years back. The people who fill those positions have seamlessly integrated into our team, and the respective departments have worked very well together. So we've been really happy with that. Our care and conservation team, of course, cares for all of these art pieces. There are about 1,000 art pieces throughout the city. They do things like taking scarves off the Cecil Andrus bust, removing gum. When people spill things on stuff, people do graffiti on our murals. So they are out there working hard. And this last year, Gentle Breeze, which has really, I think we can all agree, become an iconic symbol in Boise, we had to make some major repairs to this art piece. You may have noticed that the swings were off for a couple of months, but it has been fixed for the long haul. We worked with some local engineers, and we're in good shape there. The team works really hard. They created an annual maintenance plan as well that helps us to budget our maintenance and operation dollars annually, and makes that predictable for both council as well as for our team. And then they've also created a rotation schedule for the portable works that are going to be rotating throughout city facilities. So standardization of process has been really key. I want to point out that a conservation expert was in town from Portland just last week to help us with the neon signs. You may be aware of that installation that just happened last week and is being sort of kicked off on October 30th. She is a well-known conservationist nationally, and she couldn't say enough about our public art conservation team. We have a couple of really great professionals that do this work. So I just want to give them a big shout out. Next, I want to talk about the cultural sites. So the city owns and
Madam Mayor.
operates. Yes, of course.
Sorry, Jennifer.
Yes.
If this comes up later, feel free to just put this comment in the parking lot. I know that you earlier this year, maybe last year, came to us with sort of an expanded definition of what public art was. And I was wondering if any of the things you just touched on, whether it's that portable art that's rotating, if we saw any new projects with that expanded definition.
Great question, Councilmember Halliburton and Mayor. None of those art pieces are specific to the change in the ordinance. What you may see coming up in the Depot 100 is the purchase of some what we call vitrines, which are exhibit cases, which will allow us to do a history and cultural assets exhibit at the facility for that celebration in April. So that's sort of the type of thing that we couldn't have purchased with those dollars before, but now can and will become part of the capital assets of the city that we can use with the expanded definition.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that a little bit further. I wanted to touch base on it before we got out of public art, just because I felt like that was something that your team did that was really exciting. Last year was really expanding that definition to recognize all sorts of other types of art. So excited to see those things pop up.
Thank you for bringing it up. I really appreciate that. So for the cultural sites, we own the James Castle House, which opened in 2018, and the Irma Hayman House, which opened about a week after I started in 2022. Both sites really are special platforms to tell stories that are unique to Boise and Boise's identity. They serve as museums for art and interpretive exhibitions, as well as community gathering spaces. And the Castle House, as I mentioned, hosts 5 artists annually in residency. This team has worked really hard to increase its reach across the city over the last couple of years through doing regular and predictable programming and also diversifying that programming. So you can see the visitorship is up slightly, and I think we're going to see better numbers here in the next year or so. Part of what we've done is try to increase the intergenerational programming that we do in response to the youth mental health crisis here in Boise and across the country. We had a goal of hosting some intergenerational work, and you can see here we had a Be a Maker Day. This is 2 of our staff's children on Family Museum Day as a way to bring youth and special new audiences, not necessarily art lovers, people who go to regular art museums and such, bring new people into the facility. So that was very successful, and we'll be offering this particular event annually. And in addition to art exhibitions and historical interpretation, the team is also hosting different genres of events, such as our cultural ambassador right now is Story Night, and we've had one event of theirs at each of our sites as well. At the Irma Hayman House, we had an evening called The American Dream, and that was focused on Black residents that told their stories of being Americans. And then at the Castle House, we had Story Porch Night with storytellers from the deaf community who shared tales of resilience and creativity in this very special place for them that holds a lot of meaning. So these sites are really becoming platforms for residents to share their stories and enrich the fabric of Boise's culture. At the Castle House, we celebrate the life and art of James Castle himself, who's an internationally renowned artist. And his lifelong disability provides a lens through which we can reach the deaf and hard of hearing community here in Boise and beyond. But I think it's important to recognize that through outreach to that disabled community, it really demonstrates what our department can do and wants to do with accessibility and serving the residents of the city in every capacity that we can. So it's really, I think, a model for how we plan to roll out our programming throughout other places as well and reach those additional people. So in addition to the permanent collection that's at the Castle House, we host 1 to 2 annual exhibitions there that rotate. We've had 4 exhibitions there over the last 2 years, which gave opportunities to guest curators, as well as providing some opportunity to view the materials that came from the residents who were there and paired those next to James Castle's works himself. The Irma Hayman House celebrates the life of Irma Hayman, and she did extraordinary things for her River Street neighborhood and community. In the 20th century, the River Street neighborhood was home to working class Boiseans, primarily immigrants from Russia and Croatia, Japan, China, all over the place, really. And it was home to also the majority of Boise's Black residents. In 2023, the Hayman House received the Orchid Award from Preservation Idaho, for anybody who follows that sort of stuff, for contribution to historic preservation, which was quite an honor for the work that the city had done. And this year, we're really pleased to announce that we were awarded a $100,000 grant from the National Trust for Historic Preservation that's going to be helping us with additional staffing over the next 2 years. We're really working to uplift the stories of the former residents of this neighborhood and provide a platform for them. So we've had things like voter registration drives, this photograph of the Story Night event that I told you about. We also hosted with the library a BIPOC panel of writers from the Boise Comic Arts Festival. We've had writing workshops in conjunction with the cabin and many other community events. So we're really using this space as a place for Boiseans whose stories are either hidden or untold or forgotten to bring those stories forward. I want to point out that we have a really excellent exhibition up right now there called Voices of River Street from 1940 to 1972. We've worked really hard to crunch census data, talk to the residents, show their photographs, have clips from their oral histories as a way to really uplift those stories. And I would just be honored to invite any of you to come and take a tour of that facility. I'd be happy to do that with you, with our staff that runs it. The opening reception for the exhibit, which was peer reviewed by an expert at Boise State, was quite powerful, and many former residents joined us. And it's important to recognize that exhibiting photos like these help us with the uplift of the neighborhood, which really is pretty much almost gone now. There are very few remaining vestiges of that old neighborhood. And so we work with our community partners there to collect materials like the ones you see on the screen that preserve those stories for the future. And that's a good segue to talk about the Boise City Archives. The Archives has two goals. Number one, to comply with state law and ensure that the preservation of the city's organization records are maintained. And number two, to conduct community collecting, like the type of stuff that you saw on the screen a second ago, so that anyone who wants to conduct research on Boise in the future has access to historical records that really provide a full picture of what our city is. We do aim to be the experts on Boise history and hope that we can fulfill that through our archives. Now, the archivist has been working hard across the organization to streamline processes with the city clerk. That's been an excellent partnership that we've maintained, and we've really worked hard to put a lot of effort into standardizing processes, streamlining them. And as you probably know from the budget sessions, we are working right now on consolidating our facilities with the city clerk. So we're really excited about that. As it relates to community collection, we work with donors such as Opera Idaho, CCDC, the Congregation Ahava Beth Israel, to gather their materials and preserve them again for both posterity as well as for research purposes. We've been collecting oral histories, photographs, and other items, both from River Street residents as well as many others. And right now we're in the midst of a collection effort for the Depot 100. So we've made a call out to Boise residents, asking them for materials that they may have related to the Depot. So and things have been coming in. It's been pretty exciting. Our history team works closely with the city archivist to create history exhibits like the one you see on the screen that are meaningful and tell significant stories, using both the materials, the manuscript materials that we collect, as well as artifacts. One of the goals that I've had since becoming director is to make sure that our historical exhibits, which have only ever up until 2022 been exhibited here on the third floor, that they actually get rotated throughout the community. And again, working with library as well as other facilities through Boise, throughout our city, we have been reusing those exhibits that we create and put up here in the third floor. So we're really excited about that. Our exhibitions have gone to the Collister branch, the Colin Eustick branch, the main library, and Bound, to make sure that the many residents who never make it to the third floor of City Hall actually can see the value that those exhibitions provide and get educated on the history of our city. We have had 5 exhibits over the past 2 years. We've collaborated with, for instance, the Congregation. We've collaborated with Albertsons Library, and we've hosted 5 exhibits over those years. We've also been collecting oral histories. You've heard me talk about this before, so I won't spend too much time on that. But one thing that you should know that I'm excited about is we're working on identifying a workflow to ensure that we interview every public elected servant that comes through the city. We have many people who are elected, and who come and go throughout the city, and we're trying to catch up and fill that gap and make sure we interview all of you. And then, as you know, we rolled out a new program this summer called City Steps. 2 of the 4 tours were focused on Boise history, and I'm pleased that Councilwoman Willits joined us for one of those. We also had 2 tours on the public art collection. And over the course of 10 weeks, we delivered 47 tours to approximately 300 residents. It would have been many more had we not had to cancel many during the month of July, which you may recall was miserable. We had 2 summer college interns that helped us give those tours. And then while they were interns with us, they also created 2 new tours that will be worked into the rotation next summer, which we're really excited about. So I just want to end by showing a couple of the opportunities and show that the brand awareness that we've been working on is working. We have, again, in green or yellow, whatever color that is, you can see the various categories that I've put on the left here from 2023, and then in 2024, those numbers have really increased. So our capacity has been building dramatically as opportunities for our residents increase. And This next slide is showing a ratio of applicants to opportunities. And this is almost one of those, maybe we're doing too good of a job showing what we're doing because we're having so many applicants for the opportunities that we can't accommodate everyone. You can see that especially for grants and for artists in residency and public art calls, we have far more applicants than we have opportunities for them. So we're trying to figure out how to balance that. But I'm actually quite pleased to see that there's so much demand and so much interest in the things that our department is doing. And we're hoping to make some changes and do some evolution of our programs over the next couple of years to see how we can accommodate those needs. And then I just wanted to show, I mentioned earlier, the Level Up, the Going Public Art Learning Series that we've been doing. This is a 5-part workshop that we've had during the course of this year to encourage local artists to understand the public art process and be able to apply to our bigger projects. We get a lot of local artists applying to Traffic Box and smaller things, but we really want to train them and help them understand how to apply to some of the bigger projects. And so we are working on those professional development opportunities. I just want to bring a couple of points up of things that have been difficult a little bit over the last couple of years. We've had to deaccession a few pieces of art. That's a very normal thing that our department has to do, as art is not intended to be permanent. We want to think that it is going to be, but for a whole variety of reasons, it's not. So we did have to deaccession this particular mural in Councilwoman Corliss's district. We also had a couple of other pieces come down. We also made a decision to end the Fettuccine Forum series. Our numbers there had gone down. It had changed quite a bit in the 20 years. So we had a wonderful final year last year, but we will not be offering that anymore. Ultimately, we want to be reaching new audiences. And I'll end with that by showing that we are doing a lot of diverse programming and hoping to reach our refugee community and, again, the diverse people who make up our incredible city. I want to point out just what's coming up next. We have a lot of brand marketing awareness and updated website coming up this year. So stay tuned for some of the new things that are going to be coming there. We have a lot of incredible partnerships with CCDC that we're going to bear fruit over the next year and a half as the downtown district sunset. We're also going to be, we've been working hard on equitable fee-based programming and revenue generation. So you'll be seeing a policy coming your direction for approval over the next couple of months. And then we're just about to kick off this week our updated creative economy plan. We've got a survey going out to the community and are really excited to update the cultural plan, which is now 7 years old and much of which has been accomplished and been successful. So with that, I will stop and answer any questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Jen. Questions or comments?
Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Just a huge shout out to you and the team. I was able to go on the City Steps tour and had a blast. And there were lots of folks there, some from out of town, but a lot from in town that were looking for things to do. And I know we all learned a lot. And it was just really fascinating just to see people's reactions about things that they might not have noticed before. And one of the things that I think make really great cities is art. You know, we go to cities to see something different, to see something creative, to see something that is different than what we know. And I really appreciate your department's efforts on that. And it's also to give folks in the community an opportunity to experience that and to recognize just how much we emphasize that and how it enhances our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to tack on a kudos. Thank you so much. We had some visiting council members from your city here recently. And as I chatted with their council president, they were just blown away at how much public art just was on City Hall alone. And they were just so impressed and really hoping that they could do more in their community. They really saw how much vibrancy it brought to our neighborhoods. And I would like to just ask you, kind of curious how our arts and history department is operating with neighboring cities. If there's any kind of engagement, curious, we see as Garden City develops, they've been doing some really cool art. You had a slide there of an LED performance, Kid Lightning, which was fantastic. And they're opening up, I think, their new location in Garden City. And curious how, is there any kind of engagement there, broader arts and history community upon municipalities?
Thank you, Councilperson Morales. Yes, actually, we have our whole team has been super engaged with the whole community. So there is a Treasure Valley Arts can't remember exactly what it's called, but they meet monthly. So they travel to Eagle and Caldwell. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, they were in Caldwell with the Caldwell arts people out there. So yes, they are regularly meeting with the folks throughout our valley. In addition to that, they're also doing regional work. So for instance, we had our care and conservation team present to the Utah Arts Commission just last month. We had our entire public art team use funding from the Idaho Commission on the Arts to travel to Salt Lake City and meet with their public arts team. So yes, they are deeply involved in the rest of our region as well as our valley. And one last thing, just last week, our public art manager and the new public art coordinator for the airport traveled to Portland Airport to look at their airport and to meet with their public art team. So very engaged in that world and that professional world and not operating in a silo at all. So, and it's really neat to notice, to not only see what other cities are doing, but how valuable the work that Boise is doing is seen by our peer cities in the area. We get a lot of kudos. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
For the question.
Madam Mayor. Dr. Stevens, thank you so much for this presentation. I mean, I just, to tack on with what my colleagues say, appreciate the work of the art department, what you've done with the department and what the team members have done for art throughout the city. I would just like to ask for consideration when the department looks at different grants or different opportunities to also consider maybe the locations of where that programming happens, to see where there may be opportunities in West, Southwest, Central Bench areas to maybe have some of these activities held. So I know a lot are downtown for space reasons, but if we can pull it out of downtown and into the other neighborhoods, would be really supportive too.
I appreciate
Thank
that
you.
comment very much. I think there's a lot of opportunity for work with the Parks Department that will help us get into those places. So thank you for that. And let's check back in on it.
Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
Hey, Jen, could you give us a little tease on what America 250 is? Council members are starting to hear rumblings about what that could be. And so maybe if you could just, I'm sure we'll talk about it more extensively in the coming months, but would love just to hear a little tease on it.
Thank you, Councilmember Nash and Mayor. Yes, I don't have anything to, well, can I tease you with the one main thing that I do have? We will be putting together a committee over the next month or two with members of our city organization to make sure that everybody in the entire city is involved in this. I will say that I have gotten commitment from the Boise Philharmonic to play at our 4th of July celebration. So that's exciting. And other than that, we have we don't have any specific plans, but we've had a lot of brainstorming. One of our members of the team actually traveled down to Salt Lake City for a conference just a couple of weeks, actually about a month and a half ago now, to meet with Youth 250, which is actually a youth organization planning on for the America 250 celebration across the country, but specifically coming from the youth population. So we're sort of in the brainstorming session. What we're going to really be trying to do is use a lot of the existing sort of umbrella programming that we already do, but have it really focused on America 250. So we'll be having art calls, which we would of course already do, but they'll be focused on America 250 themes. And then we're going to be doing a lot of history stuff, as you can imagine. So we'll be using the facilities that we have for that. And hopefully also working with the state and partnering with the state on a couple of things here locally.
Madam Mayor.
Mhm.
Jen, I was really just trying to trick you into saying semi-quincentennial, but you dodged that. So
I'm so impressed that you can say it. Good job.
I think he was just creating the opportunity to prove that he could say it. I did sign on to early, probably a year ago, to being an America 250 city. It's really important to me that we as Boise celebrate this semi-sesquicentennial. And there you go. The semi-Dyson, is that it?
No.
No, I
Semi-sesquicentennial?
think it's semi-quincentennial.
Semi-quincentennial. When I was a kid, Texas celebrated its 150, and we had to learn how to say and spell sesquicentennial in class. That was part of spelling for the year. It was important to me that Boise create a year-long celebration, recognizing where we've been, but most importantly, where we are headed. And I'm so excited to hear about the Philharmonic, because that was my dream, that we would be able to have them join us for the celebration. And there'll be much more that we announce as we start to work through the process. And it will be an all city approach. So programming, much organized by arts and history. But when you think about our other community departments, the library, the parks, others, we'll have a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Madam Mayor, just one more thing, sorry. Jennifer, I just wanted to touch base on a couple of things. One, very excited about the equitable fee-based programming. I know that that's something that you've been working closely with Parks and Rec to see how they do it. They do it so well. We want to make sure that we can make these programs sustainable, but also accessible. So I'm excited to see what that presentation looks like in the future. I don't think that we have time to have the conversation today, but I know that the last time you came to us to talk about some of the archiving, there's both the ability to pull that up, but there's also the long-term storage. And I just want to make sure that we keep that conversation about the long-term storage as we continue to grow our public art pieces, that we're thinking about that as well. And I think that just needs to be something that's on all of our council radar. And then the last thing, I just want to thank you for all the work in the River Street Historic District. That's an area that I think is very fragile with some of that history because there's so few sort of remaining parts that are left. But that's also still a neighborhood where we have a lot of kids and a lot of families that live close to downtown who probably wouldn't be able to live there if it weren't for some protections on some of the housing. And so I think that the storytelling that you're doing of the past in that area is creating an opportunity to preserve some of that stuff for the future. So I specifically want to thank you and your team for the work that's been done in that River Street area.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I appreciate the report and all the work that's gone on. I will say the archive piece is part of a longer term capital discussion, so not part of today, but it is very much on the radar of this team as well as the city team. Just want to thank you for the improved partnerships with CCDC, with so many different agencies and organizations throughout the city, helping us do more, do better, and reach more people. But I get feedback quite often, particularly from CCDC, but as well as from other leaders on the extent and effectiveness of the partnership that you and your team have established. So really appreciate that. And then I'm so glad to see that as you've done more work on the department identity, mission, and vision, that is linked back to the work that we're doing around our city's identity as we grow. And ultimately, the Arts and History Department, arts and history in general, helps us do that. It helps us keep at the center of everything who we are as a city as we change and grow. And with the deployment of additional programming and new art in new places, new types of art, and with some of the celebrations that we have coming up, whether it be the Depot 100 or America 250, the importance of that and the impact that your department is having and will have becomes even more clear. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on to the Office of Police Accountability. Nicole is here with her team to present her annual report. Thanks, Jennifer.
I apologize. I'm just having a few technical issues, even though I tested it earlier. I'm going to try it a different way. There we go. Well, good morning, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I am Nicole McKay, as you know, Office of Police Accountability Director. I am 1 year into this role, and it is a pleasure to be back with you today to present with you my first annual report. Today, you will also be hearing from our new data analyst, Lexi Whitmore. She is about 2 months into her role, and she will be presenting some of her initial data insights today. I'm going to start off with a brief overview of the office's highlights from the last year. The biggest news is that our team of 5 is now fully staffed. with the recent hire of our data analyst. Lexi has extensive experience in data analytics from running her own business for the last 10 years. She is fluent in Japanese and Korean and is a great fit with our team. She is quickly becoming proficient with our data sources and software. Turning now to our investigative reports, we have issued 9 use of deadly force reports to date and have 4 incidents from 2024 to review. They are each in various stages of investigation, and I anticipate that 3 of the 4 will be ready for our review here shortly. We've received positive feedback from several sources on our report format and content and strive for continuous improvement. I do want to take one sort of side note on these investigative reports. If you've had a chance to review those, which I'm sure you have, we've added quite a few new sections. One of those is recommendations for training. They might be missed opportunities, and some of those are like de-escalation or other missed opportunities to bring in additional resources. And I want to just give credit to the leadership at BPD. Each time that we have released one of these reports, I have had their full support and attention in reading through those and implementing the recommendations that we have made. And I have been so grateful and impressed for the attention that these reports have received and to see how they are actually earnestly implementing those recommendations. So we're off to a great start with the feedback with BPD. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. As I've mentioned before, we have been tracking some of the data points in the use of deadly force reports, and we will be sharing with you today what we have learned. Turning to contacts, in 2024 to date, we've had 96 contacts from constituents. That compares to 91 in all of 2023, with 33% of those qualifying as a complaint and 30% of those concerning performance of duty. We will present more information on our contacts later in this presentation. We have been busy engaging with community members, community leaders, and organizations. I've highlighted just a few of them here, and I apologize for all the acronyms. It is really difficult to fit this all in a single slide, but happy to talk through any of those. These connections have been meaningful and insightful and are building a strong foundation for community engagement. In addition, I have attended many national seminars on constitutional policing and community encounters, and local seminars on language access and Idaho's new crisis system of care. In addition, both Kathy Brack, our OPA case analyst, and I have gone on several ride-alongs. We did one daytime ride and then one evening ride, and both found those to both be very informative. I think my favorite part was interacting with the officers and children in one of the neighborhoods that hosted quite a few refugee families, and to see the importance of the relationship these officers are building with members of our community. And that was a really significant highlight. Kathy and I and Lexi as well all plan to do additional. And I know that my next one will be a nighttime, maybe downtown ride along. So I'll have more to report on that coming back to you. Each of these contacts and ride-alongs and seminars provide the community policing information that OPA needs to guide its work. Turning now to, auditing and data analysis, we are well underway establishing process and standards for our auditing and specifically use of force. We will have more to share on that at our semi-annual meeting in 2025. And finally, we are off to a great start with data analysis. Lexi will be presenting some of her initial insights today on critical incidents, contacts to OPA, and web traffic. Before we turn to our ongoing work, OPA has 3 previous work requests to report on. The first is the findings of the document review and the investigation of former Captain Bringleson. The second is BPD's promotional process, and the third is BPD's leadership development training. As you will likely recall, in November of 2022, racist statements posted to white supremacist websites and private forums by then BPD Captain Bringleson were made public. The Boise City Council contracted with the Washington, D.C. based firm Steptoe and Johnson to investigate whether racism had penetrated BPD. In this investigation, Steptoe propounded a substantial number of documents. The contract with Steptoe was not extended after it reached partial completion. OPA was tasked with reviewing the documents collected by the Steptoe firm and answering two questions. Number one, whether the documents contained evidence that retired Captain Bringleson's stated racist beliefs infected his policing, his interactions with the community, his former roles and responsibilities, or individuals he supervised. And number two, whether the city resources were used in the manufacture of racist materials or content. A local law firm was retained to review 105,000 documents consisting of personnel files, training materials, policies, procedures, evaluations, OPA's complaints, audits, and files, and critical incident reviews. So you can see that it was a very thorough review. As you will note on the slide, the records did not reveal any evidence that his racist beliefs infected the Boise Police Department. Likewise, there was no evidence that city resources were used in the production of racist materials or content. Because the records reviewed also documented former Captain Bringleson's lack of professionalism, defensiveness, deference to officers, and personal health challenges, council asked how Mr. Bringleson was promoted several times and ultimately to captain. As a follow-up to those questions, council has asked OPA to provide an update on the current BPD promotional process and specifically the consideration of the Office of Internal Affairs records and performance evaluations during that process and leadership development available to officers both internally and externally. While I cannot speak to the process utilized at the time of former Captain Bringleson's promotions, BPD's current practice includes the review of all internal affairs records by the deputy chief and the chief of police prior to the interviews of the top three candidates. Any concerns from those records are addressed with the candidates during the interviews. Currently, performance issues are documented in the internal affairs system and reviewed as described rather than in a performance evaluation. BPD has been consulting with the city's Human Resources Department to consider options for the development of a performance evaluation program. Additionally, peer review feedback is also collected for the top three sergeant candidates and reviewed by the deputy chief and chief, prior to interviews and discussed accordingly during the interviews. Turning now to leadership development. As you know, command staff play a pivotal role in shaping organizational culture, and meaningful leadership development can enhance the command staff's knowledge and skills to establish best practices.
Great, thanks.
There we go. I have grouped BPD's leadership training into two categories: required internal and optional external training. They are further grouped by leadership position. I apologize that I have far too many acronyms and abbreviations to fit this on a single slide, but I do have a cheat sheet with full training names if you are interested in any, or I can follow up with a written description of all of these if interested. As you can see in the required section, officers receive anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks of training, depending upon the position. These trainings are in addition to the leadership training provided during academy. My initial research indicates that internal training varies by police department, while external training by position is far more uniformly accessed. I am happy to follow up with you on any additional questions you may have on training, and of course, the training division of BPD would be able to provide you more content information on any of these in particular that you're interested. As a brief refresher, OPA's body of work can generally be divided into three categories, as you can see on the slide: investigations, audits, and data analysis. We are current on our complaint investigations and use of force deadly investigations. We are developing audit processes and standards, and we are focused and actively working on data analysis. And Lexi Whitmore is here to present some of her findings from her initial work. Lexi?
Good morning, Madam Mayor and City Council members. I'm Lexi Whitmore, OPA's data analyst. Today, I'll be presenting you with some data insights on critical incidents, contacts to OPA from citizens, and web traffic on the OPA website. To start, I'd like to briefly refresh your memory on the definition of a critical incident. A critical incident is a use of deadly force or a use of force, vehicle pursuit, or vehicle collision that results in death or serious bodily injury. I provided the full definition here for reference. OPA tracks a variety of contributing and mitigating factors related to critical incidents, and I'll be sharing some statistics on those factors today. Our office has investigated or is in the process of investigating 12 critical incidents since 2022. These statistics will not include the most recent incident on September 25th of this year because it is so recent and the investigation is still in the early stages. First, let's take a look at suspect survival. In 50% of the critical incidents, the suspect survived. Every suspect in these critical incidents was armed, and the most common weapon was a gun, present in 8 out of 12 cases. 3 suspects were armed with a knife, and 1 suspect was armed with a knife, hammer, and pry bar during the incident. In terms of criminal history, you can see here on the right that every suspect except for 1 had a criminal history as either an adult in 10 cases or as a juvenile in a single case. The outlier with no criminal history was the Department of Corrections officer involved in the incident at St. Alphonsus. On the left, you can see at the time of the critical incident, 6 suspects were under supervision or under no supervision by the criminal justice system, while 4 were on parole. 1 had maxed out after serving a full sentence, and 1 had a warrant out for his arrest. Maxed out refers to an offender who has served all of a prison sentence for a previous crime without being granted parole and is no longer under supervision by the correctional system. A slight majority of suspects, 7 out of 12, had a reported history of mental health challenges. The majority of suspects, 8 out of 12, were housed, although some of these housing situations were impermanent or reliant on someone else, such as a family member, friend, or partner. 2 suspects were confirmed to be unhoused, and 2 had an unknown housing status. A slight majority of suspects, 7 out of 12, had no reported substance use. Substance use was confirmed in 4 cases, and in 1 case, it was unknown whether substance use was a factor or not. In this small sample, reported mental health challenges were a more common contributing factor than housing status or reported substance use, indicating that mental health may be an area to focus community and policing resources. In addition to the factors already discussed, OPA is also working on evaluating de-escalation and failure to de-escalate with the expertise of our investigator. I look forward to bringing you more information on that in the future. Next, I'll be sharing data on contacts that OPA received this year. As of October 1st, we have received 96 contacts. The majority of those, 62%, resulted in OPA providing information to citizens, which includes answering informal questions, educating the citizen about BPD policies and procedures, or redirecting a citizen to the appropriate resource. In fact, 16 of our contacts so far this year have been regarding other law enforcement agencies within Idaho, demonstrating a desire for police oversight from citizens around the state. Complaints made up 33% of our contacts so far this year. A complaint is defined as an allegation that meets jurisdictional requirements and, if proven true, would be a violation of BPD policy or the law. Excluding the September 25th critical incident, OPA has had 3 critical incidents come across our desks, as well as 1 inquiry regarding a critical incident. And you can see them all grouped together there for a total of 4. OPA invests extensive time and resources into investigations of each critical incident due to their serious nature and the strong public interest in these incidents. Here is a more detailed breakdown of the types of contacts we receive. The most common types of contacts include concerns regarding duty performance, informal questions, incidents involving agencies other than BPD, and concerns about officer demeanor or rudeness. I'd also like to highlight some of the categories where contact numbers are especially low, namely use of force and biased policing. Specifically, we had 2 contacts so far this year related to use of force. One of these was just an inquiry rather than a complaint, while the other was a complaint far outside of OPA's 90-day time limit. The one contact regarding biased policing was actually related to the Nampa Police Department, and the complainant was redirected to the appropriate agency. Next, we'll take a look at complaints specifically. First, I'd like to refresh your memory on some of the possible determinations for a complaint. These terms are as defined in BPD policy. A determination of exonerated means that the acts described in the allegation did occur, but were justified, lawful, and proper, or resulted from a lack of policy or training. Unfounded means that an investigation conclusively proved that the act complained of did not occur or did not involve the employee named. Sustained means that an investigation disclosed sufficient evidence to clearly prove the allegation. And finally, not sustained means that an investigation failed to discover sufficient evidence to clearly prove or disprove the allegation. OPA has received 32 complaints this year so far. This visual shows the determination made in each complaint organized by complaint type. For example, in our most common category of duty performance related complaints, the officer in question was exonerated in 10 instances. 5 complaints were not sustained, while 3 were determined to be unfounded. 1 complaint was out of the time limit set forth in OPA statute, which is 90 days. Although I do want to note that our director has the ability to provide an extension if there are any extenuating circumstances. This year, we have not yet had a sustained complaint against an officer. Now I'd like to share some of the next steps for OPA analytics. We plan to investigate potential correlations between officer overtime and use of force, complaints regarding officer demeanor, and workers' compensation. Work on this analysis has already begun and is currently in the preliminary stages. We will also begin evaluating de-escalation and failure to de-escalate, particularly in relation to critical incidents. Another project in the works is to compare complaints received by OPA and BPD to discover any differences in the nature and determination of those complaints. Finally, we would be happy to hear any recommendations or requests from you, Madam Mayor, and council members.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to say to Nicole, your team, you've done a great job. We're very happy with what we're seeing. And this is the kind of information that we want. And we just think you're doing a great job. So we appreciate it. I don't think this would be possible if it weren't for the good relational work that you're also doing with our officers in our community, Nicole. If we want us to operate at the highest level possible, there has to be that relationship of trust so that officers can um, implement whatever changes that are necessary to operate at that high level. And that's not going to happen without the relationships that you form. So thank you very much for your work, and to your team. Nicole always says such great things about you, and we're very happy with the work you're doing.
Madam Mayor, Council President Nash, we really appreciate the kind words, and I've definitely been impressed since starting with Nicole's ability to build relationships just across the board. So it's great to be part of the team.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Thank you so much. Was so impressed by your background and the fact that you speak several languages, and what a benefit that we have at the City of Boise to have you here. And also my compliments to Director McKay. You have really done an incredible job of giving us solid metrics, setting up a system that we can follow, and that also can provide transparency to citizens, which I think is extremely important and why this office exists. So thank you for fulfilling that. I have just a couple of questions. One is more technical. Were there 33 complaints or 32? I thought I saw two different numbers.
One of them may have been the percentage. I can return to the
Okay.
previous slide.
Yeah.
So it is a little confusing because the raw number is 32 complaints,
Uh-huh.
but complaints made up 33% of our contacts. They are very close, so I can see how that would be finicky.
Thank you. Thank you. And then I had a question about the backlog. Maybe, Director, this might be your question, but we were so glad to hire you, and I know that when you came into the situation, there was a backlog of complaints that you were going through. You were trying to process. I want assurance that those complaints have been reviewed, and could you answer that and know that we're up to date?
Madam Mayor and members of the council,
I
will be coming back after
the Oh.
podium after Lexi's.
Yeah, so actually, any more questions for Lexi?
Madam Mayor, I do have a question for Lexi.
Okay. Yeah, so let's take questions for Lexi, and then Nicole come up to address some others and wrap up.
Lexi, thank you for all of your work evaluating all this data. I'm curious if we know where this data will be located for the community at this point. Is this something that's in this report that's available? Is it available on the OPA website? And how often is it updated for the public to see?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I appreciate the question. Some of this data may need to be anonymized to present on our website. We're actually going to be discussing in the next section a website refresh we have coming up, and we're hoping to build a data analytics system section of that website at some point as well. So that's in the future plans. At present, I believe this is our first presentation of data to the public here today.
Great, thank you. So a lot of the stuff that's been on here is stuff we've been asking to try to figure out and see for a long time, especially some of those metrics about past criminal background, unhoused mental health.
Is your mic on?
Is it not? There we go. Maybe it's just not pointed in very well. So it's really nice to actually have somebody who can come in and take a look at that data, analyze it for us, and give us a better picture. So I want to thank you for your work there. And I'm sure that we'll hear more here in a little bit, but also making sure that the community is available or is knowledgeable of some of that work that you've done as well, so that they've got a better picture of it too, is really great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Lexi, on song SAO, Kamsamida. Those are like the two words I remember from old college roommate. Welcome. Thank you. I do have a question about the 96 contacts. Are we assuming that they all get a follow-up? So when things are closed out, are they informed of the result of their complaint? Do we have data on that? Does that happen every time?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Morales, thank you for your question. I am relatively new to the office and I have not processed the end of these complaints yet, but our case administrator does a really wonderful job of following through with people and making sure their concerns are answered. I've seen her redirect people to a wide variety of resources that frankly sometimes goes above and beyond what she would probably be required to do in this position. If there's any specific complaint information you'd like, I'd be happy to follow up with you afterward to familiarize myself with the details of each of those more thoroughly.
Yeah, and I think, and maybe this is something Nicole could speak to later, is just confirming that if a contact is made, that there is some sort of confirmation or follow up, and if there is any instances where no response is provided, obviously that would maybe lead to concerns for complainants not seeing the good work that's happening, or maybe the limitations that you have if it's a time issue or things like that. So it'd just be good to I just would love to follow up and ensure that that follow up is happening.
I can definitely do that. I believe that we record a disposition, so some sort of outcome for every single complaint, but I would be happy to double check that with our case administrator and follow up with you there.
Thank you, Lexi. Really appreciate it.
So I have one final data section. OPA is planning a website refresh, as mentioned a few minutes ago, in the near future, which Director McKay will provide more information on at the end of our presentation. And first, I'll be sharing some data on our current web traffic to give us a baseline of where we're at. Due to some technical changes in the data collection, this data covers the period from November 2023 to September 2024. In that period, our landing page had 1,822 views. The investigative reports page had 1,105, and the contact form had 245 views. Engagement time was the highest on the contact form page, with visitors spending about 2 minutes there on average. Although the engagement time for investigative reports appears low, it's important to note that our investigative reports are PDF downloads, and any time spent reading a downloaded report is not captured in these statistics. When we take a closer look at investigative reports, we see that 1,102 out of 1,105 visitors to that page actually downloaded an investigative report. So that is a huge conversion rate of 99.7%. This demonstrates that visitors to investigative reports are informed and highly interested in those reports. In contrast, 14% of our visitors to our contact form page actually ended up submitting the contact form. Specifically, 245 people visited the contact form page, 67 people started the form, and 36 ultimately submitted the form. As the form is fairly straightforward and unlikely to discourage someone who'd like to contact us regarding BPD, I speculate that some visitors are realizing that our office is not relevant to their issue. For example, they may have an issue with a different agency than BPD, or maybe trying to contact BPD itself directly. As I mentioned early in the presentation, we do have people from other jurisdictions, for example, who reach out with a concern about different agencies. We also receive many contacts by phone, so some visitors are also likely deciding to contact us in that way rather than filling out the online form. With that, I'll turn things back over to Director McKay to tell you more about our upcoming website refresh. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Lexi.
Thank you, Lexi. As mentioned, we are working with our partners in the city to refresh and expand our OPA website. Our goals with this refresh are to improve language access, invite a wider range of community contacts. For example, request an OPA presentation to a group or community organization, or to allow a community member to provide feedback when it's not in the form of a complaint. We would also like to provide a question and answer section for readily available information on topics such as processes, standards, timing, jurisdiction, to establish uniform naming conventions for our reports, our investigative reports, which is quite difficult to navigate currently. Provide links to common greater Boise contacts, and eventually publish our data reports. With that, Madam Mayor and City Council members, I am happy to stand for questions. And before I give it back to you, could I please, Madam Mayor, answer the question by Councilmember Morales? Please be assured that every contact our office has receives a response. And if it is a contact that does not meet jurisdictional requirements, our case administrator, Kathy Brack, makes a phone call every single time or a response in an email. And as Lexi mentioned, goes above and beyond helping with the handoff to the appropriate agency. I very much appreciate her doing that. If it is a complaint, that complaint is, per our statute, sent over to the Office of Internal Affairs. It is investigated. It is sent back to us. We review that to determine whether it is fair, thorough, objective. And if so, we will communicate in great detail the findings to the complainant, and they have the option to also appeal that to our office. So every individual who comes in contact with our office receives a robust response.
Thank you for that answer. I just want to say a couple things. I know there are some questions. It's been a little over a year, and this is your first annual report, and really appreciate the attention to detail given the number of questions and requests that you'd received from myself, my office, and this council. And having seen this office over the years as a city council member to today, the level of professionalism you have brought and the team has brought in the last year, the systems that you've created to ensure that people that call actually get a call back was not happening before. The attention to detail, the data analysis, all of it is as a package in the Office of Police Accountability is impressive and exceeds the expectations that I had, in the sense that we aspired to see this, and now we are, and you were delivering. And I can't stress enough how impactful the work that you're doing, the professionalism and systems that you've created, you're bringing to the job is in aiding us to look at through lines and policy changes and advancing the importance of transparency and relationship and respect between the community and the department in the long run. So thank you very much for not only this today, I know much more is to come out of it, but all that you have done in the last year to meet the goals that we all have had for this office for a long time.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for the kind comments. I have to say, on a personal level, I am just so grateful and appreciative of all of you and the support that I receive from Mayor's office and this council. It has taken us a year to Council Member Willett's question. It has taken us a year to not just be reactive to the work that was existing in the queue or came up during that first year. And now we are at this pivotal moment where we are actually looking forward and proactively engaging in work for this office. It's a really exciting time for us to have a full team, to have an incredible team, to everyone really understand their roles, responsibilities, have the tools and skills and support that we need to go out and do this business. So this to me feels like the beginning of really what we can do. With this website refresh and continuing efforts to get out in the community, I really do envision a day where OPA is going out to any group that requests for us to go out and explain, how does BPD work? How does OPA work? How do we exist? A lot of people don't understand where OPA exists in the organizational structure. And once you take the time to explain and they understand, it really does, I think, contribute to the credibility of the work that our office does, plus to help individuals understand policing, which is something that I've learned so much in this last year, to really understand policing and what it takes to be a good community member and what it takes to be an effective and compassionate police officer. So we're in a really exciting point right now, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. One of the things that your team's done really well, I think, is help the police department understand that your department can help make it stronger and better, and that there is a team aspect of that while there also is accountability. I'm wondering what from your presentation today will get shared with the police department so they can also have an idea of your annual report and what you're working on, knowing that building that trust is so important.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Halliburton, thank you for that question. I meet with the command staff at BPD. It used to be weekly for the first year because I had a lot to learn. We now meet every other week. So on a regular basis, I am sharing with them what we are hearing through contacts to our office, our review of use of force, our review of investigative reports, and those get shared in great detail. And then when we issue reports, those get taken very seriously. And I am just, again, truly, I'm very grateful for the relationship that we have, because when we do issue these reports, they take it to heart, they implement it. I interact with the training division on how they are going to do it. Our investigator, Will Long, drills down into what kind of tactical training they should do, for example, and they are implementing it. So rather than us waiting for an annual report to discuss these things, we discuss these things every 2 weeks. Certainly, I will share my report with them and ask them to, if they have any feedback or comments or questions. And I don't know that all of you understand the way this process works, but every time we issue a report, a critical incident report, those get shared with BPD command staff, and they have 5 days to make comments and send them back to me. I have, other than, questions that might be a technicality, like tell me the effective date of this policy, because there have been some changes. I don't receive any comments back. I have not received a single formal comment back on our recommendations. So that tells me that we are doing a good job of supporting with evidence our recommendations and giving them the information they need to improve their policing.
Thank you, Nicole. And I guess I would want to just commend both your department, but also the police department as well, for seeing the value in this accountability, and that it should make us better at our jobs, knowing that if there are things that we're doing that aren't quite right, that we can figure out ways to improve those. So thank you for building that relationship. I think that that's one of the most important parts of the job, as well as building that trust in the community, knowing that you are there, that you are making sure that we're having accountability measure for our officers as well. I can't add too much to what the mayor already said, but I think professionalism really is the key word, in and throughout your department. It's something that we haven't quite seen at this level since I've been here on city council. And it's just so impressive to see the work that you've done in a year period of time, the professionalism that you've brought to the city, but also the team that you've built as well. And so I want to congratulate you on that first bullet point of making sure that you've got that full team, that you've got the right people on there like Lexi and Kathy. So again, thank you for building a strong department here at the city.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, thank you for the kind comments.
Madam Mayor. Director McKay, can you go back to the Bringleson slide, please?
Whoops. One moment, please.
You're A-okay. We've all been there. Do not worry.
It takes a village.
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, is
Thank
this the
you.
correct one?
Yeah, this is the
Okay.
right one. Okay, I had a couple of questions on this. It looks like, the previous firm gathered all these documents and then you used a local law firm to go through them. Could you tell us how much it costs to, oh, thank you. Thank you. Could you tell us how much it costs to, or how much we paid the local law firm to review all of the documents? And if you don't have this on top of your, I get it, you can
Okay.
relay it.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Willetts, I do not have that information on the top of my head. This contract was entered into with the law firm prior to my arrival. So I do have partial knowledge on it for the second payment that was made, but I would have to look that up and get back to you.
It's okay. You've presented us a lot of information when you can. And then I just want to emphasize here, I mean, the headline here is that after all of these 100,000 documents were reviewed, that there was no evidence that this officer's racist views had in any way, I would say, infested Boise PD. Would you concur with that?
Madam Mayor and Council Member Willetts, 100%.
And in terms of, what we've all learned from this situation, do you think there's anything that we need to do as a council from a policy perspective to ensure that that remains the case?
Madam Mayor and Council Member Willetts, my review of both the promotional process and the internal affairs process has demonstrated to me that it is a very thorough process now. In addition to that formal process, these things are discussed regularly. When there's an issue that is raised, and I'm speaking to the issues that were, some of which were known at various stages about Captain Brinkleson, about his demeanor or perhaps personal challenges. I can't speak to that process that was utilized at the time, but there is no way those would go unnoticed at this point with current processes.
And I'll just stop you there because I've got a question about that. The processes, in addition to the data review, there were recommendations for changes internally to the department that the chief was tasked with. So when you're talking about the processor, is that reflective of or inclusive of the changes that the chief made?
Madam Mayor, that is my understanding. I'm operating at a little bit of a disadvantage because that occurred prior to my arrival.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that, yes, those recommendations you, Mayor, and Council made to the chief at the time have been implemented. And what I'm seeing now is a very robust awareness and review and documentation and consideration of those types of information at the most critical points. And that would be hiring decisions, promotional decisions, things of that nature. So I do have every confidence that information that may have circulated at the time of Captain Brinkleson's promotions, we have the appropriate processes in place in BPD that this would not happen again.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So thank you for that assurance. Appreciate all that you've done to sort and sift through all these documents. And I just want to put another stake in the ground, if you will. So what I'm hearing from you is, it's been about 2 years, or even maybe 2 years, that the Bringleson situation, those atrocious things that he said did not infect Boise PD, and that there's no evidence that that is something that is subterranean within the department, that at this point that truly was a one-off. We've investigated it, and we have processes in place now to ensure that if anything like that raises its specter again, we're on it.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Willetts, what I can assure you of today is the documents that existed at the time did not reveal any evidence of an infection of racist beliefs into the police department. What I can also tell you right now is that the integrity of BPD right now is, I have every confidence in the integrity and the process and the professionalism and the attention to issues. When I go through and I review internal affairs files, just want to assure you that we have access to everything. And when we look at what's going on in internal affairs, you can see that they are department initiated. They take every allegation extremely seriously. They are robust in their investigation. And when they close it, we can see what the disposition of that is. We will come to you at a later date when we are more advanced in our data analytics and be sharing, of course, nothing that is protected, but at a de-identified way, how robust that system is and what percentage of findings there will be. And I can assure you that Not only is BPD taking every allegation of misconduct seriously, but they are documenting it, reporting it, and we are reviewing it. So if that is out there through these many different channels, we will come to know of it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks
Madam Mayor and
to
City Council.
the three of you for all the work that you've done, the presentation today, and the continued partnership with both the department and the community. And with that, we do not have an executive session, as far as I understand. We will recess break for lunch and then be back here at noon. Thanks, everybody.